Today we're going to be looking at finding the unit rate when we are given a word problem. And my question today is asking about a recipe, which is very, very important in being able to adjust the amount of ingredients, because we want to keep this proportional so that if we are making the same recipe for a larger group of people or a smaller group of people, it still tastes the same. It's not going to be watered down, or it's not going to be extra salty. It's going to be exactly the same flavor as if I were to make it with the original recipe. So the recipe requires 3/4 cup of flour and 1 1/8 teaspoon of salt. Nick wants to make the recipe using 1 cup of flour. It's our goal. To maintain this ratio, how much salt is required when 1 cup of flour is used? So you're just going to repeat that 1 cup of flour here. Now, it doesn't actually say find the unit rate or find my, sometimes we call it the constant here. It will say things like, we want to find this for 1. And there's 2 different ways of finding how much 1 is going to be of this problem. Now, my favorite way of doing this is to just take these 2 values and divide. Now, I have 2 things in this problem I am looking at right here. I have flour and I have salt. Now, if I am trying to find 1 cup of flour here, I want to make sure flour is in my denominator when I am solving this problem here. And I want to know salt compared to flour. So I'm literally going to just say salt divided by flour, and that should give me my answer. So let's take a look at this right here. How much salt do we have? We have 1 1/8. Very important. How much flour do we have here? 3/4. So in this problem here, we're going to take these 2 numbers, divide them with one another, and this should give me my answer right away. And this answer, if we divide them, is 1.5, also known as 1 1/2. I just used a calculator, so it gave it to me as a decimal right here. But that is the answer to this problem. And this makes sense because we originally started off the problem by having not even a full cup of flour and more than a teaspoon of salt. So of course, if the amount of flour is going to be moving up to a full cup, my teaspoon of salt is going to be moving up as well. It just was determining how much it actually increased right there. Now, the second way of solving this is using a proportion. And this proportion we usually use when we are actually solving problems and finding a specific value. Like if we wanted to find like 4 cups of flour instead of 1. But we can use that with unit rate as well. Now, if we're using a proportion, it is very important to make sure our measurements are talking about the same thing. And in this case, we actually don't need to use the same order. We can, but it doesn't really matter. As long as we are making sure that flour over salt is equal to flour over salt, we'll be fine. Now, I need, of course, some values here, so let's substitute in our numbers. 3/4 cup of flour, 1 1/8 teaspoon of salt. I want 1 cup of flour. And what I don't know is my amount of salt that goes with that. Now in this problem here, I'm going to take these numbers and I'm going to cross multiply, which means I'm just going to multiply them together with one another. Now both of these are actually really easy because it is a unit rate problem. 3/4 times x is 3/4 x. And of course, 1 times anything is that other number. And we are presented with an equation here, which is a multiplication equation. It is a one-step equation. 3/4 times some number is equal to 1 1/8. So very simply, divide by 3/4 to both sides, which really means we are doing the same thing we did before. 1 1/8 divided by 3/4, the same strategy to get this answer of 1.5. So it doesn't matter which of these strategies you choose to use, if you prefer cross multiplication, or in this case, since it's just unit rate, you can just divide. You'll still get the same answer because technically you are doing the same exact steps, regardless of which way you chose to solve them.